Hi guys, welcome back to the Funny Thing Is podcast. I am your host, Nicole Birch, and every week I bring you someone who shares their trauma, the medicine they took to heal, and the funniest lesson they learned along the way. Today is no exception. I am so excited to introduce you to my friend who I've known for well over a decade, talented actor and voiceover. He's going to introduce himself. Let's welcome Aiden Bristow.
Hi,
Yay,
thanks for having me.
yay.
I'm scared.
Why are you scared?
I feel like I know you really well, and I'm generally very private. You're gonna make me talk about things I know how to say out loud. Yeah, I'm gonna get really comfortable with you in like 3 minutes. I'm like, why am I sharing that? Why am I sharing that?
Oh, it's great. It's great. And you don't get to take anything out.
No,
I'm kidding.
Yeah,
we can work on it. We can work on it. We'll just edit it out. No, it's fine. So we've known each other for a long time.
Let's not age ourselves, but let's just say over a decade.
Over a decade. We used to work at the same dive bar in the Valley together, which is great. Would be great if they sponsored this. That would be nice. So here's my question for you.
Yeah.
What event happened in your life that was life-changing?
Yeah, I guess it was a combination of taking mushrooms and going into a jungle in Costa Rica to find myself.
Okay.
But basically what happened over the course of that was I got to change my story, the story that I would tell myself of like how I grew up, who I am, what am I about, like, press play. And I had this whole fucking like story ready to go to tell you like.
What was the story? Because I don't know if I remember.
Sure. What I learned was that it was mostly full of shit. And that was the surprise, like how full of shit you can really be to romanticize like in your own way, like where you're from. But basically it was like, parents divorced really young. They should have never been together. They got married after knowing each other for 3 months. My dad started, having other affairs like really quickly, and then they like lied to each other about it. And then I had a childhood of like neglect, and like at one point or the other, like only one parent was there, and I wouldn't see or talk to the other one for years at a time.
Wow.
And then I was like slinged back and forth across the globe between England, Australia, America, back to England, or then back to America. And it was just like, didn't have like many friends that were like with me the whole time. And it's just like trauma. And I was like just inserting it, which like objectively, there's some truth to all that. Like if you're following a timeline. But like, I just learned over the process of the jungle and the mushroom experience that like it's just not serving me, like if the foundation of who you are and what you're telling like yourself who you are is like just baked in all this like negativity, there's gonna be a pretty low ceiling of like how far you can get in relationships, how far you can get professionally. Like there's only so much of that negativity that's palatable to the people around you, right? And then they're gonna eventually like put a wall up and be like, yeah, I'm good on that. Like the world's negative like enough as it is. I don't need to be gravitating towards this field, this like negative energy field.
Okay, so if you were to say what relationship was the hardest for you? The one with your mom, the one with your dad?
They were both pretty hard, but like in different ways. But like my dad's like a lot more zen-ish, I would say, about our relationship. He like never tries to force it to be something that it's not. So there's definitely something really nice about that, right? And then with my mom, like she's the opposite of that. She's like, was always like trying to force it to be this other thing, right? But the problem that lied with me was that like I had built this foundation of who I am based on like these like shitty relationships that I was telling myself were shit, and it's fed like me to be who I am, and it was like a badge of fucking honor, And so like once I was like hitting walls, realizing like, man, this is only gonna take me so far, right? Then tweaking it was like fucking terrifying, right? Because it's like, well, if I'm not these fucking things, like who the fuck am I? You know what I mean? And so like I'd get panic mode, right? Like my mom was like apologizing for shit, like with humility, right? As opposed to being like open arm, be like, thank you for saying that, I've been waiting. I'd be like, I don't know what to do. Like I can't have that apology in my life. Like if we actually solve this shit, right? Like then who the fuck am I? Because my identity, like I planted my fucking flag on that.
Since you're an actor and a performer and stuff, do you think like a lot of people think that if they heal that takes away from their creative side?
Yeah, I would, say a lot of those people are, I don't want to say idiots, but it takes some.
That's okay. That's a general consensus.
That's
a general consensus we found on this podcast.
Look, like you don't have to have like immense pain and suffering and PTSD to be able to like draw upon things like for your work, right? Like I don't need to go like serve time in like a war zone, right, to be able to try and like find a way into something like that. There's like research you can do. There's so many documentaries these days. Like there's people you can talk to, right? So yeah, like I don't need this like immense pain in like different facets of my life to be able to like draw upon upon for like artistic purposes. So that was never like a fear of mine, especially because like my work is like a lot more imagination based as opposed to like, you know, taking an emotional scab and trying to like rub the scab off to get the pain going again to like feed
Right.
the work. So like I was never worried about that. But like I was worried just about like you'd go on a date with a girl or you like meet new friends or meet new people and like, hey man, like where are you from? Right. And like again, like press play. Like I had this negative story
Oh,
ready to go. It was
yeah.
more of that stuff, right? And so just and then like in relationships, you'd see it, right? Like it's like if I'm just like fucking baking in this cake of negativity and resentment all the time, like unless you know you want to be with someone who's like that, which I didn't, right? Like a person's not gonna like want to stay around for too long, or at
Right.
least not the people that you like want to build a
Yeah, it's so
substantive
bad because
relationship.
I'm trying to think when we met if you had that.
Fuck yeah, I did. Fuck yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You
yeah.
still seem like pretty positive.
Yeah. Yeah, like I see what you're saying. Like I think I've always had like a excited, like positive kind of nature about myself, but like ultimately like when people wanted to like scratch the surface a little
Yeah,
bit,
you're
right?
like,
Which
here's my
eventually
shit. Here's my
yeah,
shit.
right? And like looks again, like I was saying earlier, like some of that shit's true for sure, right? But like it's all like how you want to spin the narrative for yourself, right? So like the thing that really helped me, the first thing that I did was actually a mushroom trip. I was reading this book, How to Change Your Mind, I think it's called. They made a Netflix miniseries out of it. It's
Okay.
fantastic. Couldn't recommend it enough. But
Okay.
it basically was about all these like various therapies that have been done that were working in like the 40s and 50s and 60s and really like helping people. And they're using it through AA meetings and stuff in Canada. And like tens of thousands of people were getting help, like getting
Yeah.
off of their addictions using
Shrooms.
psilocybin, right? And so
When did you do this in the Costa Rica
no,
trip?
no. So it like talking about it now, you would think like, oh, this like how convenient these things went together. You probably planned it, but like it wasn't that. Like, and that's why I think like you always have to have like a humility about like how you approach life of like just being open to things and never
Yes.
thinking you have shit
Yeah.
fucking figured out, right? And so
Right.
I read this book and I was like, let me try it with these mushrooms. And then like, you know, my girlfriend was like really into these like spiritual centers in Costa Rica. So I tried that. And there was like a therapy thing that they were doing for a 5-week like, you know, course. And I was like, sure. So it all kind of like surprised me of how these things kind of came about,
Yeah.
but it all like worked and fit really well. But the mushroom trip was the first one that I did, and it was after reading the book, and you're just seeing all these therapies they were doing where, you know, with traumas and stuff that were like happening to people, you have this thing, the amygdala, right? And basically with the
What's the
amygdala.
amygdala?
So basically you have your brain and you have this thing that like connects right into it that
Yes.
goes in and like right there's this thing called the amygdala, which is like a fire alarm for your brain. So like anytime there's like a threat or it thinks that there's a threat, it like starts going off like danger, protect yourself. Like a really good bad example is like, you know, you walk into a room and you see like a coiled piece of rope, right? And like your brain might
Yeah.
think that's a snake and your
Right.
amygdala goes off, right?
Right.
But then your brain can process that information and no, not a snake, it's a rope, and it
Right.
calms
And
down.
it calms down.
But if there's trauma in your life and like something, there's like a trigger that happens, right? That like brings about that trauma, your brain, that amygdala won't stop going off. Like it still thinks it's in that fight or flight kind of thing, right?
Right.
And so for me, like I was like reading all this in the book, it kind of tells you that. And then another great book is The Body Keeps the Score, which kind of goes into like your brain
Yeah.
chemistry. And so those two together really helped me see that like I had all these like triggers in my life that were like from my parents and like the story I was telling myself that happened with my parents that were like fucking up my current relationships and like were kind of fucking up how I was introducing myself to new people and like not getting the response or the reaction or like the intimate like
What do you
relationships I
think?
wanted.
What do you think your hope was when your original hope was when you would introduce yourself at those as that person?
See that I'm damaged, feel sorry, find it seductive, think that it's awesome, and then like want to be around me.
Got it.
You know?
Okay, that's
where it's
dope.
like,
Okay, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
some of those things happen, right? Like you say all that, like, oh fuck, tell me more, right? But
Yeah,
it's
but I
not
also
like
feel like you're also attracting. You could attract
damaged
the-
people.
Yeah,
Yeah, dude, for sure. Like hurt people, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
like damage likes damage, and you kind of gravitate
Yeah.
towards each other, right? And so, but when you take like a report card of your life and you start looking around like the people that are around you, you're just like, fuck, man, there's like a lot of negative energy in my life. And like, how it like, I have to be like the source of that ultimately if there's that much consistency in that.
Yeah.
And so the mushroom thing kind of came about with the 2 books, and I was thinking like, fuck, man, like what if I take all these like family albums that I have, right? And these like photo books that I have of like my
Oh,
childhood
shit.
growing up.
Okay.
And what if I took, you know, 10 grams of psilocybin and then like looked at those, went back through those books. Yeah.
Okay.
Went back through those books, played Iranian music because I'm like ethnically Iranian, and that's like the shit that was like playing all the time when I was like growing up, right? And so let me go on a trip and just try to absorb this and find another way into
Yeah.
like these relationships. The book book, How to Change Your Mind, did like a really good example with it, where it was like basically, if there's like a snowy mountain, right, and it's like you find one way to get down this mountain, right, and so like with your skis, the path becomes kind of cemented, right, and that's the one way.
Yeah.
And then there might be an easier way, right, to get down that mountain, but you don't know because it's all like packed snow everywhere else, right? So psilocybin can help you like basically put a whole thing fresh snow on that mountain for you, and you can find another way down.
Damn.
So
Okay.
I took those mushrooms. My girlfriend was great. She was like, just, you know, she trip sat me. She like sat next to me, made me tea, gave me grapes. She would just like massage me.
Is that
and
when
stuff.
she's like, they're sober for it? Well,
Yeah, totally.
They're
Trip
just
sat.
watching
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Okay,
She's a great trip sitter. We went to Amsterdam and I took a bunch of mushrooms and went to like 5 museums. And she just trip sat me while I was tripping balls. It was amazing time. So I did that, and like it was really fucking cool with these photo albums because these are photos I've seen like hundreds of times, right? And so like all of a sudden, like I found myself like creating a new narrative with these people, like as opposed to seeing them as these people that just like fucking brought all this like pain and suffering into my life. Like I saw them as these like 22-year-old kids who had come from Iran to England, right? And they were scared, and there was a revolution going on.
Oh, your dad's Iranian too?
Yeah, they're both Iranian, right?
British,
and so like there was a revolution going on. Like they didn't know when they were gonna get to go back, right? And like they did, if they tried to go, like my dad, like he would be forced to join the military. So like it was a definite no-no. And like Iranian culture, like a lot of cultures, like families fucking everything. Like, and my dad had friends like who like when they found out they weren't going to be going home for a while, were like trying to commit suicide. Like that's how ostracized they felt from their own country, how much like pain and suffering that brought, right? And so like all of a sudden I was like looking at them as these like scared kids, right? And then like the purpose of me wasn't this thing to like try to fix their relationship, which is what I was telling myself, right? It's like they met, they shouldn't have never got married, and then it wasn't working. They're like, well, fuck it, let's have a kid, you know, and maybe that'll fix it. Like that's what I was telling myself. And to some respect, maybe that is true, right? But like another way to look at it, right, is that like family's everything culturally, right, to this group of people, and like they want to find new roots in a new land, right, to be able to just ground themselves, which is like a really human thing, something universal that like anyone can empathize with, right? So what if I'm symbolic of that, right? As opposed to being this thing that was trying to fix a cheating marriage, right? Where there's cheating and adultery. What if I was representative of like this new source of hope? Like what if I'm actually that, right?
Yeah.
Which is also true. It's not that it's not true, but like if I like skew my narrative towards that, like and make that my foundation of who I am, like all of a sudden there's like
a whole different
it's a game changer,
entity.
right?
Yeah.
And so I was doing the mushrooms, I was going through and I was like, it's not just my mom and dad in these photo albums, it's like my grandpa, it's like my uncles and aunts, and I'm just like creating all these like kind of new relationships by like looking at it from a different perspective, kind of that mountain thing, right? You like put all this new snow on it and then you can find other ways down that fucking mountain, right? And so I was like kind of doing that with these photo albums, and like I came out of it and like I gotta admit, man, like a lot of that resentment had dissipated like once going back to those photos, right?
How long does I'm very unfamiliar with shrooms. So like how long?
You're saying
yeah,
that for
I'm
this.
So,
yeah.
you guys, I don't even understand what drugs are. How long does an average trip last, or specifically
5-6 hours?
Okay.
Yeah. It was.
Is the whole time are you looking through photos?
Yeah. I mean, I started with the Iranian music, and then I had the photos there, and then like when I like was really fucking rolling, I was just like, all right, let me start taking a look at these. And then, I mean, you know, I was like crying and I was like getting emotional, like looking at these things. And it was really great. So like that helped a lot, like especially with like my dad, who like I felt was the source of all this like trauma happening. It was like him who committed adultery, let's say, and kind of broke the marriage off. And so I kind of like just took a step back and like rethought all of that. And then it also kind of led to my mom and I starting therapy eventually, which was great because
this is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Because well, a lot of people wouldn't think to do this. My mom has actually told me, no, I don't want to.
Really? Yeah.
So, and you know my mother, but I'm so curious who brought it up.
Well, she was apologizing, right? She was apologizing, and I was finding a lot of resistance and a lot of like, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this, right? Because of that identity thing, right? Because then who the fuck am I if I don't have a fucked up relationship with my mom?
If I don't have a problem with you.
Exactly.
Dude.
Like so much of who I am is about that, right? Like I don't talk to her. Like people would be like, how often do you see her? And like I love saying like I talk to my dad once a quarter. I talk to my mom maybe every couple months, you know?
Yeah.
Like badge of honor, bullshit narrative, you know, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so she was apologizing like with pure humility, right? And I just couldn't fucking accept it. right?
Yeah.
So that's when I was like, oh, there's something about me not working. I need to fucking reevaluate this. So started therapy, and like it was rough, man, for her. Like I have to give her a lot of credit because like I was basically with a fucking machine gun of grief and like, you know, resentment, and I was just fucking giving it to her, right?
Yeah.
And like she would even ask during like the session, like to the therapist, like, is there anything salvageable here? Like he just seems so angry.
Oh, no.
You know, I kind of felt really bad for her because like, you know, she was just taking it all. And so we did a lot of sessions, like we did like 3 months of sessions of like every week or every couple of weeks of just me getting it out.
Yeah.
And then there was just like such a nice feeling of just reprieve and just like getting this weight off my shoulders, getting off. And so then we just got to a place where it's like, okay, like now where are we gonna go from here? You know? And so it just gave it different launch codes, right? To be able to have a different destination from like the fucking shitty cycle of resentment that I was holding on to that was really important to me.
Yeah.
And so so that was kind of the beginning of it. And then last December, my girlfriend wanted to go to this retreat center called Pacha Mama in Costa Rica. And I already like I've been meditating for like almost 3 years now, like daily. Like I'm like really religious about it. Like it's great. And like this Pacha Mama place, like it kind of sells itself, for want of a better term, as like a spiritual meditation kind of center. And there's meditation like classes you can take every day, yoga, etc. But they also have these workshops, right? And so my mom actually came with us to Pacha Mama. It was me, my girlfriend, my mom. And so my mom and my girlfriend did a workshop that was just a juice cleanse for like 5 days, but like intense, like not eating. You're doing enemas every single day.
Oh, yikes.
Talk about a bonding experience between the two.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, like yeah. My mom was like in there with her.
They're best friends now.
Helping each other out. Yeah. And so, so I did this workshop though called Freedom from Your Past, right? And it sounded interesting just based on like, if there's any shit holding you back, here's some exercises we're gonna do over 5 days, like 8-hour days, right? Where we're just like trying to fucking get this shit off of us so we can like get freedom from it. And I was like, cool, bet. Like, let's try that. And also, I just didn't want to be like doing the same workshop as them. So like, I kind of
got a different experience.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that was interesting because there's all these like tools that they try to give you to try to rewrite the narrative in a way. So like a lot of it was like using your non-dominant hand to like make drawings with crayons that like representing your mom, representing your dad, and then you would do role play exercises towards that drawing. So like you would do like one drawing that represented you a kid, one drawing that represented your mom, one drawing that represented your dad, right? So the one that was like your kid, you'd like tape on a chair, and then you would act out how your dad acted out towards you or how you imagined it to that drawing. And then you do that with the mom, right? And then you would flip it. And then you would do the same thing, but like as the dad, right? Like you would like reverse it where you would like play yourself and then like experience how they treated you or how you felt that they treated you one by one.
Oh, interesting.
So you would do that to try to get into, I think, like your subconscious of like how you feel about these people. And then there were like writing exercises where you would like journal like what you wished like your parent would like, you know, think of you or say to you when you were a kid, and you would like redo that. And then there was like a birthing exercise, which was crazy, which was like you'd get into groups of 3, and then you'd have 2 people that would like act as your parents, and then you had these like little like mattresses, and then they would like make a womb out of the mattresses, and they would push you through the womb, right? And then they would
hold on. We gotta slow it down. We gotta slow it down. Okay. So I saw an episode of Law and Order, and it was called The Rebirthing. It's called Born Again, but it's about rebirthing therapy. And I think a kid died in it because he was trying to do it. But it's where they wrapped him in sheets, they swaddled him really hard, and then they were supposed to be reborn out of like the whole almost like a Jim Carrey out of the rhino, you know. And I was like that, and that was 20 years ago. I think that episode aired. So
no sheets in this one.
No sheets, a mattress.
Just like these like really flimsy, small little bendable mattresses, right? That are maybe like 6-7 inches.
But I'm fascinated by it because I'm wondering what the stuff is before that leads up to that, because that's something that I am a fan of all therapies. That's what this whole show is about.
Yeah.
So my thing is, but you have to sell me on it, right? You can't just have me jump into a mattress day one, right? So you gotta go. So what is the stuff that's leading up to that? I mean, you said the crayons and the
drawing. Yeah, those are all like day 1, day 2. The mattress thing is like the last day or the second to last day, if I'm not mistaken, right? But like prior to that, you would do little exercises, and some of it's So the one thing I kind of learned was like there's a difference between a cathartic experience and a healing experience. A cathartic experience can like really give you like a momentary kind of reprieve from whatever pain or suffering it is that you're trying to like just get out of your fucking system, right? It can be
That's cathartic.
Yeah, it could be jerking off, it could be exercising, boxing, it can be, you know, something that just gets you that release, right? But you really have to couple it with more of a cerebral process to make it a healing kind of thing.
Got it. Okay.
You know what I mean? And so in the class, right, we would do like exercise where you're just like kind of running around and dancing all primally and just fucking getting it into your body, right? And just doing like weird shit that I honestly in the beginning felt resistance. Like, I don't want to fucking jump around like a fucking idiot, right? But like, you know, you really have to kind of like just trust and lean into it. And so we would do physical exercise like that. Like some people, when they were doing the drawings, they would take these like little foam noodles and beat the shit out of like their drawings that represented their dad. Or like on the flip, when they were playing their dad and then there was a drawing of them, they beat the shit out of it because that's how they like remembered growing up, like just like physical abuse, right? And so you're doing all these like physical cathartic things, but then as soon as you're done, you're sitting in groups and then you're doing this like sharing process and you're trying to process it. So we would do these cathartic things and then immediately jump into groups, or like there would be like lectures and then like they're trying to help you process it in like a healing way. But you really have to couple them together. I mean, I think breath work is like that. Have you done breath work? Yeah, right? So you're doing this physical thing to get your body in this like cathartic state, this like runner's high thing, right? But if you have someone who's guiding you through it, right? And is talking to you. Like that's why they talk to you for like 2-3 minutes prior, right? Of like, hey, what are you dealing? What are you suffering with? And then they like work it in at the height of the cathartic experience of getting that runner's high thing. And then when you blend them together, you can have a healing process that comes out of that.
Yeah, I did a 6 weeks personal, it was called a personal growth seminar called Focus in Kansas City. And so much of this is the same. Like we did the thing where like my issue was my dad, right? So I was like 24. I was one of the much younger ones. And you know, I had to pretend he was in a chair and I had to have a conversation with him. And then we didn't do the birthing thing. Then we had to do the thing where we had to jump around and dance manically. And they wouldn't let us stop dancing until they believed it. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm like dancing. But the dress that I wore, because we were supposed to dress whatever made us feel beautiful. And so I wore my old prom dress, which was strapless. So I'm like, there's only so much jumping I'm fucking doing. So like I'm jumping around and the guys are like, uh-oh, that's about to come off. And then finally I start feeling it and I don't even give a shit. Nothing came out, thank God. But like there is something to that because we dance because we know people are looking. And then when you dance like no one's watching, that old cliche, like, oh, then you're tapped into a different part of your psyche and a different part of your soul, right? They did this thing at the end. So at this point, again, we meet in small groups again. And then we kind of hash it out. And those kind of become your core people. And then on one of the last days, now everybody knows at this point. And we also get labeled at one point. We get little name tags of after people know you for about a week, they label you as how they see you. And I got lost pup. And I was like, what the fuck? And everybody who looked down at their label was like, what the fuck? Because we don't see ourselves how I thought they would be like strong, badass woman.
Right.
I have my shit together. I'm like this. And I'm like, lost pup, fuck off. I was so mad. And then it was like, oh, that's so funny. And then 2 more things. So then at the end, now everybody knows my story. I'm going to cry. This is so funny. This was like fucking 15 years ago. They had all the men line up on each side of me and I walked down like I was walking, like they made an aisle for me to walk down and each one of them took turns whispering things in my ear that I would want my dad to say. Where he was like, I know, I'm like gonna cry just thinking about it. I don't even remember what they said, but they were like,
this is supposed to be comedic, right?
This is supposed to be comedic. But he's like, of course you were they knew I was the firstborn. They were like, of course you're the first. You're the one I've always wanted. And I'm the proudest of you. Or like, you always made, like all the stuff you want your dad to hear. And I was like, just weeping. And then at the end you get your 3 things. I don't remember how this works, but I know mine were, I'm a strong, confident, worthy woman. So strong, the first one is what you naturally are. So I'm naturally appear strong. Confident is the one that you can be, but you struggle with a little bit. Okay. And then the last one is the one you struggle with the most. So strong, confident, worthy, because worthy was the one. Right, yeah. And so that's the one you have to recite. And I still remember it to this day. And it's like, I'm a strong, confident, worthy woman. I used to do it before auditions, like a fucking psychopath. I'd be like, I'm a strong, confident, worthy woman. You know what I mean? Like, the casting director's like, we don't care what you are. Slate. That's not part of the slate. Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm 5'6", said I'm a strong, confident, worthy woman. They're like, get the fuck out of here.
But yeah, similarly, the birthing exercise had that you would give them a script, basically. So like once you fully came through the mattresses, they would tell you that script, and that script was basically what you wished your parents were like saying to you and supporting
dude,
you.
So it's like so similar, man.
It's
and that changed my fucking life, dude.
Same. Yeah. No, you really have to give in and be like vulnerable to the process. But like once you do, like you just change the foundation of like the story or whatever, right? That you've been telling yourself, and I just realized like I'm just a little lighter. And then like it takes practice though, because like that press play story that like I've had, right?
Yeah.
Like in the past, like it's so instinctive, right? Someone's like, hey, so like where are you from, Aiden? Oh, and then like I started hesitating and like taking a pause. And then like I would like kind of get into it like in a different angle, and then like I would refine it a little bit each time, you know, and just like realize just things felt lighter. I felt lighter, you know, and that.
How do you? Can I ask what if I asked you, hey, where are you from? What would you say?
I'd go through the countries, right? Because I was born in England, I grew up in Australia, and I grew up in America in like the DC area, right? So like that kind of all stays the same. And then like as it goes further, I would say like if they're like, where are your parents from? Oh, they left before the revolution, and like, you know, they came with like a group of Iranians, and they were going to school trying to start like a new life. And I was like the first like child like of their group of friends. I was the first one like of them to like have a kid, or one of the earliest ones. And you know, things didn't work out, but like, you know, my dad, you know, had this like new like lease on life, and like, you know, wanted to move around and went to Australia to start another life there. Like, you know, because I felt like a lot of the kids that were like in his class growing up ended up dying in the Iran-Iraq war, right? And so like I felt like he had this like kind of thing that he felt like he owed it to like make the most out of his, because he was one of the lucky ones to get out in a way, right? And like again, like you look at that and I say that to myself, it's way more of a positive kind of thing, as opposed to like, well, he didn't run into my mom at the gas station, so he was like, fuck it, I'm going to another country, and then like I would see him maybe once every 3 years, right? So as opposed to making it about that, right? Like I just make it about this other thing, and like both are true in a way, right? But like, what's gonna be the one that serves me? Right? And it's the latter one. So like, I'm just like made a more conscious effort to change that narrative, change my story basically in that way.
Did you also do shrooms in Pacha Mama, or no?
No, it's an option. There definitely is. Like there's
it sounds like a place
they
where
call them medicines, by the way. But yeah, like there's all these like healing therapy like workshop things that you can do that involve the medicines, and like you know, and they're all administered with like people that are like experts in this and have done like hundreds of them, and like they know kind of questions to ask you before, kind of how to help you through. And then as you're coming down, they always have like 2 people right next to you that are like trip sitting you and taking care of you.
I
like,
want to do peyote, or what is ayahuasca?
Ayahuasca, I've never, exactly. So like that's like something that's on my bucket list that I would try sometime. But yeah, man, it's amazing, these things that just like grow from the ground, right? And like the immense amount of like healing experiences you can have from them, right? As opposed to like big pharma stuff that like, you know, I feel like
it's all synthetic. Made in a factory,
and the more information that comes out, the more you're like, fuck, should I put that in my body? And like, I don't want to make any sort of like sweeping argument that like all of them are bad. I have a lot of friends who take SSRIs, and like it's extremely helpful.
Oh, of course.
And like it's
I have friends that are on like thyroid medication that has changed their life. So like I get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm on the same boat. I just think unfortunately we over prescribe people a lot of things, and we should have more checks and balances.
A little bit, just a little bit. Okay, so I'm so curious about Pacha Mama too. Like ever since we've had that conversation, because I met with you and your girlfriend, and I was like, dude, that's right up my alley.
Yeah, it was this group of Israeli guys who just like wanted to get off the grid and like had the resources, and so they like found this piece of jungle, they bought it, and then they made a self-sustainable little community. You have like, I think like 30 something people that live there full time, and then you have like 50, 60 people that are there part time, come and go. And you know, everything from like how the trash is like taken care of to like, you know, the fruits and vegetables you can buy at the little market that they have. They have a little cafe. And it's just such a loving community. Like my mom went, and it changed her life. She got hit by a car while we were there. And she's still, like it was in, you know, dirt roads, you know, it's not like super paved, and like a car didn't see her and like hit her. And, you know, she had to get surgery on her shoulder, and she still to this day is like, this place is fucking awesome. I can't wait to go. Everyone else should go too. And it's just great because, you know, you're like, some days you're meditating like 3 hours a day, right? And you just like feel so much lighter, and just like getting off the grid with the phones and all that stuff. It's just like such a nice break from all of that.
And you said some people started out there like you guys did, just visiting, and then just decided to stay forever.
Exactly. Like just like, you know, and like from all over. Like there was one guy who was like a photographer in New York, and he was just like, you know, doing really well, but he was like constantly like not happy, right? And you know, he just dropped everything and he moved out over there. And like, you know, you try to find ways like, I have these sort of resources and skills, like how can I be like helpful? And then you kind of find your way in. It's like really hard to kind of get in now because like there's so much like demand of like people who come and they just like fucking fall in love with a place. But like it's easier to go if you like book in advance like for a week or two and like want to take a couple workshops, like that's still doable. But yeah, man, I swear by the place, man. There's creepy crawlers like everywhere and snakes.
Oh,
and
that's
stuff.
the part you told me, like she was in the bathroom or you were in the
Yeah, you know, we had a scorpion come into our bathroom and then like she flipped out and like knocked me into the door and like I broke a shelf and I'm like slamming. Like honestly, like looking back, like if I was by myself in that situation with like those snakes and those bugs, like I'd be freaking the fuck out. But like I think something like primal kicks in when you're with your girlfriend and she's like flipping out and there's like no more oxygen to be freaking out anymore.
Yeah,
and
you're like, oh, she'll take it.
Caveman, I have to break, you know, like I just like immediately instinctively like kind of ran into that and I was just like slamming things and I'm like walking around with like my chest out like I got this, you know, like
it's so great.
Yeah,
it's so great.
Well, if I was by myself, it would absolutely not be that. I would have been like, I need another room. You need to find me.
I am very upset.
Yes. And this is going on Yelp.
And they're like, you know, we're in a jungle,
exactly,
right? Yeah,
right?
that's
exactly.
the hard part. That's the hard part.
But you really do meet beautiful people from all over the world, and I couldn't recommend. And it doesn't have to be Pacha Mama. There's like other places just like it that have varying degrees of roughness, I guess you could say. Like there's like really nicer ones that have the same workshops and stuff, but like you're in a lot better amenities.
You're
and stuff.
glamping at that point.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, man, the cool part is you really do meet people from all across the fucking earth, right? That come there, and so you're just getting all these different cultures and story, and it's cool like talking to people and like kind of like this podcast, like what's the thing that brought you here, right? Like kind of like with people who are addicts, like what's the thing that made you bottom out, right? That you're like, I don't have the tools anymore to make my life work, and I have the humility now to understand that, right?
Yeah.
And then it's from that moment that you're like, this thing in the fucking jungle all of a sudden makes a little sense. Let me try it, right?
Yeah. Okay, so where are you at with your mom now?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys invited her to a trip to Costa Rica.
We did.
So I feel
at that point, it was already better. Yeah, a lot better, man. Like I find myself voluntarily calling her, which I wouldn't want to do before, just to see how she's doing. Birthdays, Mother's Day, things like that are like a lot more a part of the equation where they weren't before. Like there's just not this like resistance that there always was, you know? And so she feels a lot better because like we have like an involvement in each other's lives, and I feel a lot better because I'm just not fucking carrying around this fucking resentment and hatred all the time, you know? It's just, like I was saying, it wasn't serving me, and I probably wouldn't have the relationship I have today with my girlfriend if it wasn't for the healing stuff that I did with all that, you know? Like you treat your partners a lot of times like punching bags, you know, because like, you know, you have shit that's affecting you in your life and they're just the person that's right there that's easy to project your shit on, right? And then you apologize and it's fine. But like, you know, the less and less stuff you're carrying around like in a resentful way, the less, you know, the burden falls on them to have to be on the receiving end.
It's interesting at the beginning of the interview, whatever podcast, you were really rapid fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're like that's how fast you're talking.
Yeah.
And then once you got to like Pacha Mama, and your girlfriend, it like slowed the fuck down. Because it's like, because it's also, I think when we talk about if we've healed something, right? We talk about it. It's like, well, I've already fucking moved past it, so I don't really want to talk about who I would, like there's that. And there's also like, I noticed, my therapist noticed whenever I would talk about my dad, I would yawn.
Interesting.
And I was like, oh, that's fucking interesting. I'd be like, yeah, it's fine. I just think that. And she's like, oh, do you not want to talk about it? I was like, no, why? And she goes, it's yawning is one of the signal, or speed talking, or like whatever. It's one of those like where you're like, I don't really want to touch it. I don't feel comfortable, or I'm bored by it. I'm bored by this conversation now. I don't want to talk about my dad in that way. We've done it for like 20 years. Like I've moved past it. It is. It's like a fucking response. But like I love that when you talk about your girlfriend and Pacha Mama. Like,
it's all positive things where I'm like, I'll take my time with this. Well, like all the others, I was like, that's who I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always like interested in, and then like there's watching people's cadences and stuff. Okay, so here's a random question.
Hit me.
What is the funniest lesson that you've learned through all of this?
Honestly, like it's amazing how full of shit I can be to myself about myself.
Yeah.
You know, like you're like, I really told myself that, you know? It's like, what's wrong with you, right? And so like, you know, it's like going back through the stories and like how, what's great is like if you've had friends that you've known for over a decade and like you keep in touch with them and stuff, and like they can kind of be this like barometer that they know the chronology of your life a little longer, you know, than the people that maybe you interact like daily, but you've only known for a couple years. And so they can kind of regurgitate back like kind of what you were telling them and telling yourself during those years. And, you know, you're just like scratching your head, like, why? Like, what was the purpose of that? Other than like, I was insecure that you would only find me cool if like I would like say that out loud, right? And again, like, it wasn't complete fabrications, right? But
it's like a tweak in perception, though.
Totally.
Yeah,
right?
And they're not mutually exclusive.
But yeah, man, like just finding like, you know, like I was homeless for like a little bit, right? And like, a lot of that was just pride, right? And like a lot of that was like the story. Like I was like, I'm not fucking asking for help. I'm not fucking asking for help. They didn't want me out here. They didn't want me like dropping, like working for an investment bank in New York to like come out here. And so it's on me. It's on me. Well, really?
Yeah.
And if I just picked up the phone and I was like, hey, it's rough. Like, can someone send me some money?
Yeah.
Definitely would happen.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But, you know, like I was like,
but
no.
you wanted to white knuckle
it. Because I wanted to fucking be like, I'm fucking living out of my car. And I'm like, I lived in hostels for a year and a half, right?
Oh,
like just,
Jesus, I didn't know
a year and a half hostels, 4 months living in my car, right? And it was all like,
out here in LA?
Yeah, fucking LA. It was a lot easier to do it here than like New York City. So I was like, if I'm gonna be broke, I'm gonna go to LA.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, all of that came from like this story that I needed to fucking tell myself, right? So that I could like tell others and feel like, yeah, right? Like that, you know, be impressed, right? Like how cool is that? You know, where it's all like fucking let it go, bro.
Dude, I remember there's a lot of people who come here and do the struggling act, like dive deep into the struggling actor thing. And I remember the first time I was like, oh, I was in between jobs or something, or I think I got fired from a martini bar in like Valencia or something for some stupid reason. And I was like, oh my God, this is where my story begins. This is where I begin. And then I rented and I had Tootsie, my dog, and I had a 10 by 10 bedroom in Reseda. And I was like, fuck this. And I got like 3 jobs. That's when I started working at Pineapple. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing the struggling actor thing. This is bullshit. So I struggled for 4 months, and just to get my own place in Larchmont. And I was like, no, I'm not doing this shit anymore. Because it's like, I could see there is something sexy about it, because it's like, oh, then they're really going to see the grit and the shit that I had to go through to get where I got. And I was like, I just don't want to do it.
I got to get that IMDb story right.
I got to get it
like,
right.
When, I'm like,
I was homeless all my
it's got to read good.
Yeah,
dude. Like, it's the same as that. Like, and look, when you're 21, 22, right? Like, it's forgivable, I think, right? That like you want to try things and like, you know, throw the Hail Mary and like fucking suffer a little bit to kind of see what you're made of, right? So a part of it is that, right? I'm not trying to like negate all of that like as a valuable experience. But like, you know, like a year and a half living in fucking bunk beds with multiple people and 4 months in your car, like eating melted protein bars, right?
Yeah.
That you bought from the 99-cent store.
Yeah.
Like, it's highly unnecessary.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I used to do that in relationships. I would always date the douchebags or the like playboys and stuff.
I met a couple. Yeah.
You met a couple. You introduced me to a couple. It was great. No, I'm just kidding. But with those, it was like, oh, that was my identity.
Yeah.
I had to date those. That was my comedy. That was everything I made money off of. That was like all that. And then after a while, you're like, for fucking what, dude?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not making that much money doing it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, get out. Get healthy.
No, 1,000%. And like, there's tons of artists that like, you know, that I even admire that like live healthy lives and do brilliant work, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like those things are mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
But you tell yourself,
absolutely.
You know, you read about the beatniks and like, you know, like how hard life was and like, you know, like, oh, like maybe that's what I have to subscribe. It's like, no,
you don't.
Just use your imagination.
I know.
Man. Yeah. So, I mean, we're creators. We're supposed to be creating things and like, yes, you can use yourself, but you can also use your imagination.
Yeah, also life's already hard enough.
Yeah.
Just use what you've already been given.
It's a
you know what I mean? Don't make it
every
harder.
Day. Yeah, you don't have to keep adding to it or fabricating things or twisting things. Yeah. So.
Thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Guys, if you enjoyed that episode as much as I did, follow us on @thefunnythingispodcast or NicoleComedy.com. And as always, don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe.